Hi, welcome to this month's edition of iChime. In this meeting, which was entitled Seeing is Believing, a live look at IBM Bob, Senior Technical Staff Member and Business Architect for IBM Tim Rowe, gave us a peek into the capabilities of what IBM Bob could do and really what the future of application development looks like. We were completely amazed at what we saw, and this video will show you that meeting from start to end. It's really worth your time. It's a good investment, and I hope you really enjoy it. I hope to see you again, everybody, down the road, and enjoy the video. Bye now. Tim Rowe is the business architect responsible for application development and systems management for the IBM operating system. His responsibilities include helping to make sure that the IBM has what is needed to be successful both today and into the future. Tim spends much of his time also helping customers understand what is possible on our platform when it comes to modernization. And, interestingly, when not helping customers, Tim can be found on the football or soccer pitch as an official. I want to add one more thing, Tim, to that before I turn this over to you. I want to just say this, Tim. Personally, I have had the great honor and opportunity to present sessions on multiple topics with Tim in many corners of the world. I don't know how many countries we've spoken together, Tim, but it's many. And I am really, yeah, exactly, more than right. And I am just truly honored that you're here, and I'm also very honored to call you a friend. So thank you very much for joining us here today, Tim.
Product that is being offered by IBM. It is, I don't like to think of it as a coding assistant, because it's far more than that. While it does do some coding assistant work, it provides a whole lot more, brings a whole lot more to the table. It is really intended to be an integrated AI-driven development partner. It's an assistant that can help you with all levels of understanding as well as your existing day-to-day development. What does that mean? Well, so first off, Bob, it's an IDE. We have taken a fork of VS Code, and we have taken and tightly integrated all of the Bob chat, the MCPs, the AI technology is all tightly integrated into this VS Code support. So as opposed to maybe other solutions that you might have used where you need to go get VS Code and then you add in other plugins, that's not this. In this case, you're going to go get Bob. And in Bob, we're going to give you VS Code as well as all of the other integrations. And you might go, okay, why are you doing that? There's a really, really good reason. Security. One of the issues, if I were to have you go get VS Code, I now have a starting point that from an enterprise security perspective, I don't have an understanding of. I now have an exposure. With Bob, we are giving you something that is enterprise secure from the ground up, because we've gone through, even though it's a fork, and we're going to continue to upgrade it based on updates to VS Code and et cetera, we're going to be very closely in tune to the security aspects of what our enterprise customers really need. So you get VS Code as well as Bob. So when you install Bob, it's all there for you. Now, that said, right, if I go over to my little Bob window here for a second, if I click on Marketplace, yeah, right, I can go ahead and install all the Code Fry plugins. They're all there, right? And I would actually strongly recommend, encourage, take advantage of those. Put those into your Bob support. I think that's incredibly important. Why is it important? Well, one of the nice things about Bob can take and leverage some of the resources that are part of your workspace. So, for example, if Bob is going to go do some looking at a RPG program, it may use the RPG parser that's part of the code for support in order to do some of that parsing to help give it additional insight. So, lots of great stuff from that perspective. Okay, so if we think about the world of AI technologies, if you've been paying attention over the course of the last year and a half or so, IBM I has been doing some AI stuff. We were actually looking at delivering a different product at one point in time, but that product had some significant limitations. And so when we discovered what Bob could do, we made a very fast pivot so that we could take advantage of the incredible benefits that Bob brings to the table. And the thing that was most impressive to me and our team here in the development lab was not only is Bob really good at this whole understanding and explain side of things, the ability for Bob to start the process of refactoring and creating new and transformation, as well as, the developer evil idea of testing, right? Being able to have some of these tasks automated and happen in a very high quality manner was quite impressive. So we are excited about what Bob can bring to the table in all of these different venues. Okay, questions before we keep plowing here? Anybody?
And I'll throw out there, if you want to send a message, sometimes people don't want to ask, but they can send me a message privately and I'll read it for them without even saying their name if you'd like.
Yeah, that's great too. Or throw it out in the chat, whatever.
Yeah, or the chat.
And if you have a question, and if you have a question, I'm not opposed to interruptions. I'm not one of those speakers that, you'll break my flow. My flow is always broken, so I like interruptions. So,
hey Tim, this is Alan. Quick question.
Hey, sweet Alan.
Yeah. Hey, is Bob's being driven from IBM top, not just Power IBM and I?
Yeah, you're quite right, Alan. IBM Bob is a big IBM project, meaning it's really intended for all walks of development. Whether you're doing Java, WebSphere, Node.js, you're working on Ansible, if you're working on AIX, futuristically, right? If you're working on Z, so it's really intended to be for all aspects of development, and it's intended to be that modernization partner, not only for people that have fingers on keyboards writing code, certainly is for that, but think about the architect. Think about, heck, even the CIO potentially that may want to have some understanding and some help with creating a flow diagram of my application so that I can maybe make changes to the flow that my developers can then go off and implement. Whether it's UI modernization and I want to create new user interfaces and have Bob help with the integration and writing, it's for quite a range of topics. So yeah, you're quite right, Alan.
Tim, there are a couple of questions in the chat here, but some of them you've already answered.
Sweet.
But I'll just, for example, one of them is, will it be able to actually handle older RPG code with using indicators and logic cycle? I think
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah. So actually, one of the things, let's just follow up on that thread. I see some of the questions in the chat and whatnot. So first off, we were actually completely blown away. We actually gave Bob some System 36 RPG code, complete the cycle and all sorts of good things like that, and asked Bob to create a design document, and blown away at how well Bob did with creating that design document. Really quite well laid out, great pictures and diagrams, very accurate from the understanding and explaining perspective, even for that very, very old types of code. Now, when you talk about the refactoring and moving forward, right? Can Bob take a System 36 RPG program with the cycle and move it to freeform RPG that's in a modern modular perspective? The answer is yes, it can do that. But, right, this is This is the fun part. With Bob, with any AI tool, the more information it has, the more accurate it'll be able to do the job. The better that you define what you want the tool to work on, the better that tool will be able to focus on the task and the ask that you had of it. What does that mean? So if I had a very old RPG program and I just said, Bob, convert to freeform,
Bob.
it would go ahead and do that. And it would do portions of it, but it might start to hallucinate because I didn't define it well enough. Maybe if I had definitions around, take your iSpecs, convert them to display files, take your print files, your OSpecs, move them to print files, as well as some of the other intricacies of, hey, Bob, you're going to be making this an RPG on IBM I, then it would do a much better job. This is where, and the first question on the list is iMode coming, right? Thanks, Frank. The answer is yes, it's coming. And that is where some of this, very detailed centric IBM I development will be delivered. And that's the stuff that my team is working on day to day right now. The initial GA will not include iMode. It's something that will be coming later. And really, that's really a function of the core support. We need to be able to handle all the infrastructure for what we call the additional packages. So, Shalom, great question. Will Bob be able to read code directly from the members? Well, in the base GA version that's going to be out soon, the answer is no. Bob does not have connectivity directly to the IBM I. But here's the exciting part. In the iMode support, it will. That is one of the big pieces that we're working on, is we're creating the native connectivity as well as a whole bunch of tools to help with doing that work on the IBM I. Read files, create files, run CL commands, run paste scripts, all the stuff that's needed. We've got about 30 different tools that we've created. Now, we've had a preview for the last 3 months or so, where we've had some of you, maybe some on the call, that have been part of that process to work with Bob and help us tune it up and make it work well. MCP, right? MCP servers are something that integrates with Bob, and with an MCP server, it allows you to do almost anything you want, which is really cool. So we've actually had some of our customers go off and create their own MCP server to connect Bob to their IBM I. So even though we haven't delivered iMode, they're doing reading from the core members themselves, which I think is always quite fun. So is Bob a licensed product? Yes, it is a licensed product. And it will be licensed, at least at GA, very, very differently than anything else you've ever seen come out from IBM. As opposed to having to go to your business partner or go to Passport Disadvantage. Instead, they're creating a new website. The new website will allow you to do like standard traditional website business transactions. I know, IBM, that's weird. That is one of the things. Actually, I got access to the transaction site yesterday, and it's basically just like you'd expect for any kind of web-based portal that works in this space, right? You go there, you put in your name, your user ID. You'll have to create an IBM account. Everybody can have one of those. You probably might have one already. And you put in your credit card. And guess what? You're done. You now have access to Bob. Bob will have different tiers, much like other tools in this industry. Or I may have a low tier, a medium tier, and a high tier, where you get more, what we call them Bob coins, but basically the more ability for Bob to go do its work and process things. So some of that stuff will all become far more clear once the RFA becomes available here in the very near future. Okay, can Bob handle older RPG, yes, it can very well. With Bob being a fork of VS Code, does IBM have to send new updates each time VS Code is updated? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Of course, we'll be doing that because we need to, again, it's all about security. So we are going to be continuing updating that, and that'll get automatically updated, much like a lot of the other VS Code type solutions. Oh, Stuart. Yes, is Bob free? It's an IBM product. No, it's not free, but there is a free trial. So once it hits GA, you will be able to get a 30-day free trial where you'll be able to go off and play with Bob as well.
Cool.
Will Bob have access to DB2? Well, great question. Initially, Bob won't have access to the IBM I, but it understands DB2. It understands SQL. Once we get to the iMode support, that will have more access to be able to do things like accessing the database if you choose to use it in that manner. So that's kind of going to be a user user discretion kind of thing. All right, Rob, what is iMode? This is some additional support that my team is working on to provide native IBM I connectivity, as well as a bunch of, we call them slash commands, but basically it's a bunch of commands that allow you to perform different tasks. So I'm not going to show you this, and I know you said this is recorded, so I guess I can't deny it, but nonetheless, I'm going to show you anyways. With Bob, we have these things called modes. And in Bob, they have this plan mode. This is really designed for architects and others to go off and learn about the code, plan new requirements, analyze things. There's a code mode where you can go modify code. There's also what we're creating as part of this additional I support. We're creating additional modes here, like IBM Developer. The IBM Developer mode would give you a simple command that says, hey, go explain this program, generate a CL program, and some of these other sorts of tasks. And those are some of the things that we are working on that's part of what we consider that I mode support. Display files. This is, again, a fascinating task. Yeah, if I go over to my friend Bob here and open this up, display files, we've actually had Bob go off and create new files. One of the videos that we just recorded that will be available come GA, this was actually a fun little project. We gave Bob display files and a database table and told Bob, we lost the RPG code. Can you go rewrite a new program that will interact with the display files, update the print files, and update the database? And so it created a new modern RPG program based on just these ancillary artifacts that were laying about, which I thought was kind of a fun little task. So, Ramon, I can't see what your image is. I don't know what Copilot. I don't know what the heck Copilot's going to tell you. I don't care about Copilot. I like to use much better tools, and that's what Bob is. But what did it tell you?
Yeah, it says that it is not literally VS Code, but it's VS Code compatible.
Well, it's a fork of VS Code.
And it is based on Eclipse TIA, unlike VS Code that is.
No, wrong. It's VS Code. It's VS Code based. See, that's why you can never trust Copilot now, can you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, one of the other questions that people often ask is, when I send Bob to go do something, right? So, for example, if I wanted Bob to go create a design document for this thing, right? I'm going to, let me just go do it again. Yeah, I'm in plan mode. Hey, Bob, create a design doc of company system, include diagrams and data diagrams. let's see what Bob does with that. So at this point, Bob is going to go off and take whatever it is that I decided to type in there and regurgitate it back to you, tell you what you thought you meant versus what you actually typed. If you agree, Bob wants to go off and start reading stuff. So at this point, Bob hasn't really interacted with the AI backend at all. Now it's going to go read some things. And so part of the process is I'm going to go ahead and approve Bob to go do this. And so as Bob is doing this, he's leveraging some AI technologies in the background. And people ask, well, what model is being used? Well, the answer is several. Bob takes advantage of multiple models. It uses the best model for the task that you ask it. And it's going to change because models change continually. And that's one of the things about Bob that's kind of intentional. One, we're only going to use models that provide a enterprise secure posture. We are also going to use the best model for the job and simplify the life of the developer so that they don't have to try to go figure out, well, I want to use, I think maybe this model will work best. Bob will take care of that. The other thing Bob does, right, it creates a to-do list. To-do lists are great. So just like a junior developer, if I had a developer that said, hey, I want you to go create this document of this thing, that the developer is going to have to come up with, these are the lists of tasks that I'm going to do in order to complete the request. Bob does the same thing. Now, if I didn't like his to-do list, well, I can go ask Bob to fix it, change it, do something different. Because I'm going to go ahead and approve this. And now Bob is going to go off and actually start the process of doing this. So you can see, right, there you go. Bob's writing a document. He's writing it in a markdown language. This is going to take a couple minutes. So while Bob is off doing this, I'll go back over to our questions, and then we can go back and kind of look to see what Bob did. So will Bob help us with what we do with the help of RDI and X analysis? Well, let's not be limiting. It's not just X analysis. RCAD has a tool called Observer as well. So there's a couple of options here. We've actually had some of our preview folks have gone and they've written an MCP server that will tie into the data that's provided by these great static analysis tools that, yeah, enhances Bob's ability to do its job. So that is one thing. Bob will not integrate into RDI, but I don't know that we need to because we have a great solution with a lot of the stuff that we have for VS Code. So will Bob eliminate RDI in a timetable to sunset the product? We do not have a sunset roadmap, and we do not have any kind of plans today to do elimination of RDI. So at the moment, we're going to continue to run with two great solutions because as a lot of developers that have been using RDI for quite some time, I certainly want to continue to help them do their job and do it well. Already been using IBM DB2 data with programs converted with Bob. Awesome. Great. Thanks, Roger. What about our investment in RDI, both time and money? So yeah, like lots of people, your muscle memory, right, it's going to have to change. I totally get that. Certainly, there's some things in VS Code that you can do that kind of emulate some of the different RDI layouts and stuff to some degree that can kind of help.
Tim, I just want to point out you have a reminder on your screen there showing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer the RDI 9.9 license. Just go ahead and keep working with the RDI team on that. I think they have an RDI channel out on the IBM forum, or you can call IBM support. So can IBM handle COBOL and BASIC? Well, COBOL, yes, for sure. BASIC, I don't see why not. It's just another programming language. So we know we've had customers that have dealt with COBOL today on IBM I and have had some good success, whether that's either dealing with the COBOL as is. We've had some customers convert it to RPG. So Marius, fabulous question. Love this. How large is the context window? Or how big of a source member can you throw at Bob? This is a lovely question. When we first got access to Bob, we had our large user group come to Rochester in October for a meeting. And one of our customers who was there, they had a problem, a task that they needed to get solved like immediately, which they needed to do a field expansion on a program that was 37,000 lines long, which, too big to open up an SEU. We threw that program at Bob, and it promptly puked all over itself. So that was exciting because that allowed us to go back to the core Bob team and go, guess what, folks? This is a problem. And they went, oh, cool, let's fix that. So there is some really cool support that's been added to Bob that allows us to do large file processing, where you can throw very large programs at Bob, and Bob will chunk through it to ensure that the context window doesn't get blown up. So since then, the customer that I mentioned that was on the preview, they've gone ahead with that 37,000 line program that was all traditional RPG fixed form. They've modernized it to free form, and they're currently in the process of creating procedures as well as doing the whole field level expansion work, all doing that quite successfully with this large program. And yes, Ricky, you're spot on. And that's exactly what they're doing, is taking these large programs and doing the modularization to it. And this is the part that's so exciting, right? Is we have a tool now that will really allow us to be able to understand that process and to work through it and make that happen. Okay.
How's our progress going with Bob working on?
What was that again?
How's our progress going with the task that you gave it?
Oh, that's a good question. No idea. Oh, look at that. Let's see. Hey, it's asking me to save it, which means that it's done. Well, let's go take a look at it. So if I open it up in, I didn't want to do that.
So also, please, if you could remind us what the initial request was.
Oh, the initial request was up here. I'll help you create a comprehensive design document for company system. First, I got to start by gathering context. One of the things, gathering information. In order for Bob to do this and to do any task well, it needs to have quite a bit of program understanding. So Bob is going to go off. It's going to go understand what it is that you asked it to do by understanding the source code. So Bob's gone ahead and worked through all that. And there it is. There's my design document. I can open it up in preview, and you can see it in a pretty format. It's got a system overview, architecture, database, UI, data flow. And if I scroll down, you can see this is where, come on, everybody with me now. Ooh.
This was all created in the last 5 minutes, you're telling us.
Pretty pictures.
This was all created in the last 5 minutes, you're saying.
Yeah, now, in fairness, it's a pretty simple RPG program. There's not a lot, or excuse me, application, because it includes tables and display files and RPGs. So there's not a lot here. But yes, this created this in the last 3-4 minutes. It's got component interaction flow. It's got an entity relationship diagram for the database, application component structures as to how the different components are laid out. If we keep going, right, user interface for what it is, right? It's 5250, so it's not much of an interface, but still. And then there's the whole data flow. Now, this is again simple. Let me go switch to a different folder. for those that have been around a day or two, somebody might remember the old Flight 400. It was a application that was written back in the days of the world of the Red Book. It's been around for quite some time, and you can see, I guess in my RPG programs, there's, I don't know, 30 or 40 different RPG programs. So it's, a bit larger, a bit more complex. This took, let me scroll down. Here's a little bit more complex database relationship. You have agents and customers and cities and flights and orders.
Hey, Tim, on the database relationships, is it only finding relationships in DDL, or is it finding relationships in DDS as well?
Don't
Because
care.
I know the DDS doesn't define
whatever you have. So the relationship, you got to remember, Bob is going to look at it from a source perspective, Alan. It's a great question. So if it can determine the relationships from how things are used in the source, it'll add that to the relationship diagram.
Okay, so it's going to look at the RPG and say, okay, it's this table and
Correct.
this table would be in. Fabulous. Okay.
Yep. Now, this is where Bob might have some failures. So if you think about, Alan, I'm going to pick on you for a minute since you spoke up, right? ARCAD has some tooling, Observer, which is going to give you that static analysis where after you compile stuff, you can get really detailed relationships, and they build a great data table that provides all that field level relationship data. Bob might miss some of that stuff because it can't have the observability is not in the source until you have to compile. And that's where, MCP servers can leverage that data, and now Bob has access to it. So those are some of the things that can be done to truly enhance where Bob can shine. Okay, let's go back to our questions. Well, Bob, allow us to add extensions available in VS Code. So the answer, I showed this a little bit, right? Just there's the extensions directory. Bob is not going to pull extensions from the Microsoft VS Marketplace.
Yeah.
It's not going to pull from the marketplace. It's instead going to pull from the Open VSX Marketplace. You might ask, why is that? Go ahead. Somebody asked. Okay.
Why is that? Why not the marketplace?
Oh, thank you, Charlie. Because of Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't want anybody doing anything other than Copilot. Right. So, good news is there's an Open VSX Marketplace, and Code for I. We publish all of these plugins to both marketplaces whenever we have an update. Rick, great question. Will Bob enable a requester to transform DDS display files to a new UI, which will work in a browser on IBM I with RPG in the back end? Yeah. Question would then be, of course, how do you want to accomplish that? Because that can be done 8 different ways or more. So this would require some specific updates to Bob on how you want to accomplish that. We've done some examples where we just throw some, hey, Bob, go create a Python interface for this, and Bob went off and done that. One of the things that we're looking to also add is the ability to tie directly into our integrated web services support. That'll be something that'll be coming in the future as well. So yes, the general answer to your question is Bob will be able to help with that processing as well. As far as again, there's a whole litany of vendor tools in the UI modernization space. I see no reason why they wouldn't be able to create MCP servers that might also help drive that task, targeting their specific sets of interfaces and tooling, which is quite exciting.
So I'm getting some questions privately sent to me, Tim. I'll just read some of them to you. One of them is, the big concern is migrating, not a concern, but the issue, if you will, is migrating to more SQL, more SQL usage within your, eliminating RPG code and going to more SQL. Will it help? And can you show it maybe an example of that, how it might do that, or at least talk about it?
Yeah, so I can certainly talk about it. So certainly, it's not like we want to eliminate RPG, but there are certainly use cases, especially when accessing data and pushing more proper relational database using the support that the database has in the database for doing field level validations and things of that nature. Even from a security perspective, there's things that you can push into the database to ensure that the data is protected and remove that sort of application level validations or updates and things of that nature. And so certainly Bob is capable of helping with that, writing embedded SQL. And part of that's going to be just being specific, especially in base Bob, the initial GA, you would just need to be very specific to tell Bob exactly what you want it to do. And Bob can help with them doing that. When we get to the additional iMode support, Bob will probably be able to do that significantly better because, that is something that our team is certainly focused on.
Tim, some of the questions I'm reading here and some that I'm getting privately as well seem to be, for lack of a better term, and with all due respect, rather basic. And instead of just, keep hammering you with these basic questions, will there be a resource that we can go to online or something like that we can go to have some of these frequently asked questions answered? Or does the YouTube channel answer some of those questions?
The YouTube video will show you some examples for sure. There will be channels and whatnot for Bob. I know that there's already people in our industry that, whether it's out on LinkedIn or et cetera, I can throw a couple shout outs to a couple of folks that I know have been publishing on Bob. Neil Whittle, he's got some great content out there. George Van Eaton, he's got some fabulous content out there. I know Greg from PC Richards, Simons, he's got some stuff out there that he's published, right? So there's already people publishing. So certainly from a community perspective, there's resources available to have those conversations, have those helps as well. So there's, and some of it is more to come. So it's a great question.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. I
think people I'm also getting, I just got in the last minute, two different people. They were asking just if you could you also spend a little bit more time on showing Bob itself?
Yeah, I can do a couple of quick things. So, so in this particular here, I got a beautiful RPG2 program. Hey, Bob, can you convert this? What's the name of this thing? FRS003.RPG to a fully free form program. And we'll go ahead and have Bob go about doing that. In order for Bob to do that, obviously he needs to read the program itself. So Bob's going to go ahead and read the program that I asked it to do. Now, before it does that work, it's going to also look at the display files as well as some of the other programs that it interacts with in order to get a better understanding. So it's going to read those files as well. There we go. I'm going to go create a comprehensive plan for converting it. I'm going to analyze. I'm going to convert file declarations, data structures, constants. I'm going to just go ahead and approve this just so we can kind of move on. And, like it did in the last round. Oh, shoot. You know what? I've made a mistake. I need to convert to the code mode in order for Bob to do this, because Bob won't write code in the plan mode. I'm going to create this new file. Create it as a new. Yeah, there we go. So now that I've switched over and I've told what Bob to do, he's going to create this new RPGLE program. where he's started working on doing the conversions. All right. Okay, I know we're pretty much at time, but other questions that we have. Are there any questions that you want me to specifically answer why this is doing this, Charlie?
Well, from somebody who does make the purchase and they're all in and they want to start using this, what does their day one look like when they first open it for the first time and they gain access and get their credentials in there? What does their day one look like?
First thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to authenticate to Bob. That's going to look like putting in their IBM ID and their profile, their password, and so Bob can go validate and do the authentications. Next thing I would recommend is coming over to the marketplace, adding in the VS Code extensions. I would also add in this thing called Mermaid. Mermaid is lovely in the respect that this is the guy that gives us these pretty little pictures. That is the one of the tools that's widely used. So that's day one. The next item is, well, you need to get your source code somewhere. So right now I've got my source code sitting on my Mac and it's sitting in a folder. So if I go to open folder, right, I've got all of this code that I've put onto my Mac. So we zipped it up off of an IDMI and we dumped it here. This allows Bob to be able to look at the stuff. Futuristically, once we have the iMode support available, you would be able to go to your system connector and connect to an IBMI and look at the source in its native location. That's a future entity. Once you've got that, visibility, so once Bob has access to look at source, this is where you can start asking questions. One of the first things that I would recommend is to create some design documents. Have Bob go take a look and digest this stuff. Because if you have Bob do this, whether it's for the whole application or for individual programs, and then include those design documents with the source code, because then as Bob does other tasks like modernization, refactoring, even new features that you want it to do, Bob will take advantage of the content that's in here as opposed to having to go re-evaluate the entire application. It can use this as part of its information starting point. Why is that important? I'll show you. It's all about the budget, right? So one of the things that Bob has is I have a budget. Right now, I have a budget of 100 coins, and I've used 11% of it. So the more stuff I send Bob, the more coins it uses. So if I can use less coins by giving it more information, that makes me happier because then, I spend less money and I have more budget to go do other fun things with Bob to do. So anyways.
So I wouldn't necessarily on day one just say, here's my entire code base and have at it and see what you can do. Things like that.
Sorry, sitting outside and I just had an airplane fly overhead really, really low. It was stupid loud. So actually, it's actually not a bad starting point is to get the overall view of the entire application. But again, it could chew up a few coins. If you wanted to work on a specific program, I would then go recommend, okay, Bob, create a detailed design doc for program FRS 021.rpg. All right. Having Bob go ahead and do something along those lines is going to be able to then help as you modernize this particular program to use less coins. And then the best part is you might complain and go, oh, well, now I got documentation that needs to be updated. Great. If you have this markdown file as part of your source, Bob will probably update it automatically for you as part of its work. because it has visibility to it, which is kind of cool.
You know, Tim, one of the biggest problems that I have seen in shops that have a lot of legacy code is that a lot of developers over the years, they just simply replicate code over and over and over again. And there's multiple programs, many programs with the same logic. And wouldn't it be nice if I could extract some one routine, then get rid of it everywhere else and just make external calls?
And the answer to that question is
like a pricing routine. That's a big one. Imagine having pricing in 10 different programs.
So the reality is, yes, you can do that. We've actually done that exact task on a couple of occasions. And I was thinking we had a command to help with that, but I don't see that here at the moment. But we have a command to help remove dead code. But yes, being able to have Bob go and identify common likes of code, create a procedure, and start that process of modularization is definitely a task that you can have Bob do. It may be something that it's going to be a conversation where you might have Bob go off and do parts of it. Okay, I want you to do some more, do some of this. So it's definitely going to be some back and forth, but definitely a task that Bob is quite apt at helping you accomplish.
Keeping in mind, this is a tool.
This is a development assistant. It's something that will assist, but yes, it is a tool. It's not. One of the things that people forget is it's not magic. And so Bob makes mistakes. What we're trying to do is limit those mistakes and reduce the hallucinations. For things like the explain and understand, Bob has very little, does a really good job. It doesn't hallucinate very much. It's very accurate. We're seeing our scoring it, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're seeing it score in the 9.5, 9.7 range consistently on explain and understand. If I were to have Bob go and just do code refactoring or writing code, but with very generic statements like Bob, do this, and not giving it a lot of context, it may forget halfway through that it's working in RPG freeform and might do some stupid things. We've seen that for sure, just like any AI tool. But if I give it more information, if I give it better context, better descriptions of really what I want Bob to do, oh my, then Bob can really sing some pretty songs.
One of the concerns that I know many companies, and it's always first of mind, top of mind, is security. And you've used that word many times in the last
for sure
hour we've been talking.
For sure.
So as far as respecting IBM authority, and so if I want to, for some particular reason, restrict certain libraries or production code, things like that, and a developer logs in, can I restrict them to can I do that the same way I could with other?
Yeah. So once we have the connectivity available, you're signing in, you're creating a connection to an IBM using a profile. So all the normal IBM profile rules exist with that connection, period. Just the way IBM works. Now, in addition to that level of security, and people also get concerned about, well, have my source code, and my source code is being sent out to this AI. What's the AI doing with it? Well, the AI is doing exactly what you asked it to do. Well, in this case, I asked it to create a design document. In another case, I asked it to do a fixed to freeform conversion. I have my own session up in the IBM cloud. So no, you can't get to my session. Nobody can get to my session but me. So all of my code is in my session for my use, and the AI, Bob, will do only what I ask it to do. It doesn't use any of that code to train or learn or any of that kind of stuff. So it's really targeted to be that highly secure sort of tool. All connections are encrypted, stuff like that.
And once I have new code, it will hopefully be able to help me generate unit tests for these new programs.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. You could ask Bob to go create unit tests. We've done some stuff with RPG unit that we've built into VS Code as well. Or, hey, Bob, go create some RPG unit test cases to test these particular new functions that I've created. And Bob is certainly up to the task.
Okay. And of course, there's a couple more questions. Does Bob have a memory capability or a way to store company standards, for instance?
Oh, great question. Yes. So for sure, you can give Bob a set of standards. I want Bob to write my code in a particular manner. Bob will do that. One of the other things that I really like about Bob is if I say, hey, Bob, I want you to take program X, Y, so in this case, program 9, and I want you to convert it, but I want you to convert it like you did with program 1, right? And use that as my, template. Oh, then spot on. Bob does a great job being able to because it has more information. But yes, you can also save your company programming standards as well and give those to Bob.
And certainly more advanced topics it will implement, such as like commitment control, journaling. It will write code to do commits and things like that, I'm assuming.
Whatever you ask it to do. That's part of the thing. When you notice a problem, if you notice Bob's not doing something the way you expect it to be done, well, did you ask the question properly? You may need to re-ask the question and give Bob a little bit more context, a little bit more guidelines as to what you're expecting.
Yeah, I think you articulated very well. I think the misconception here is that people think it's just going to replace, but it's not. It's a developer assistant, and I want to keep reiterating that. That's an important point.
Yeah, it's a developer time multiplier is really what I've seen. It really does a good job with some of those. If you've got tasks that might be kind of boring and time consuming, that you might not want to do. Bob is really good at boring and time consuming. It's one of Bob's strengths. So being able to go identify, I've got this line of code, 95,000 places. Go fix them all. Go change them all. Those are the tasks that Bob does quite well.
So out of the box right now, in the absence of iCode, will it be able to access things stored on Git, things like that?
Everything today, the base Bob, I don't believe it'll be able to. I'm not certain about the Git support, but certainly needs to be in your workspace. So you could go ahead and clone a repo into your workspace, and then you'd be able to work with it just like you would with VS Code, and then push your changes up to your branches and stuff of that nature. So that's going to be much like you would today from a VS Code perspective if you're leveraging Git.
So so you've been out in the field, Tim. What's been your sense of the acceptance or the level of excitement or interest, I should say, in Bob overall?
Very high. It's been pretty exciting. Like I said, we had about 40 different customers from all around the world. We had what was called a high touch preview. We met with them weekly, and they used Bob as part of their day-to-day development for the last 3 months. Some were doing a ton of crazy things, taking these old, icky, complex programs and understanding them, modernizing them, moving them forward. One of my favorite stories is we had a developer who wrote a program, wrote it years ago, and he put documentation in the program. And so the documentation said this part of the code did X, Y, and Z. And then when he asked Bob to explain it, Bob came back and said this section of code doesn't do X, Y, and Z. It does, A, B, and C instead.
Right.
And so the developer, who of course wrote the code, knows best, had a nice long argument with Bob and lost because Bob didn't read the comments. Bob actually looked what was actually done in the code, and it was right. And so the developer was like, "Oh my gosh, it was great! I actually got my explanation of the code updated." Well, actually, I figured out that I had done something wrong, and I had Bob go fix it, and then actually did do the right thing. So it's a fascinating tool for being able to take stuff that might be hard to understand might not have changed for a long time. We keep talking about how can we make things more usable, more maintainable? How can we leverage new technologies? But I don't want to break what I have, right? This is where maybe with better understanding, we might have a tool that can help break down some of those barriers. And that's what, we're super excited about. Others, they actually go ahead and compare. Oh, yeah, which is they rightly able to do. They take Bob and compare it to Claude, compare it to Copilot, compare it to ChatGTP or whatever. And in every case, Bob won the battle, did a much better job.
And another question.
We're just hoping it's going to get better. Yeah.
So once you buy a certain number of tokens, and let's say you're running low, you don't have to wait until the next cycle to get more. You can buy more on demand, or has that not yet been anticipated?
That's definitely an anticipation. So the end goal is you'll have the tier that you bought into, so you'll have X number of Bob coins, and when you run out, you will then have a choice. I can wait for the next month. I can buy a new plan, buy the next plan to get more coins, and I don't know that this is going to be at GA, but it'll be sometime shortly thereafter. If it's not, I want to buy a block of additional coins to perform a particular task. So that's something that will be there. I just don't know if that was something that will be there at GA or not.
Yeah, I think the concern is that people they're not quite sure what what they get for one coin. It's a learning process, I think.
It's definitely a learning process. So today we are sitting at February 17th. So in my allotment of coins, I get an allotment of 100 coins a month. And I do demos with Bob on a daily basis. I play with Bob. No, I haven't gone and sent it massive quantities of, this, that, and the other thing. But I've used a grand total of 11 of my 10 100 coins. So I'm sitting at 90 some percent of my total usage.
And we're halfway through already.
Yeah, I'm at 89% of my budget remaining.
Okay.
Now, I've seen several of our customers, the guy who's doing the 37,000 line program. Oh yeah, he had a budget of 40 coins. He blew through that in a matter of a week, but he was doing some pretty heavy AI lifting, and he had to get more coins. But I don't think, even with all the work that he's done over the course of the last 2.5 months, I think he's been working with this. I don't think he's used more than about 190 coins. I think he's under 200 coins still for his total usage. And that's with some pretty heavy lifting.
Which also suggests very high ROI.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the ROI, even if I had the cost for this, is trivial compared to, if you think about the cost for using Copilot in a production manner, what does that cost? Bob is going to be similarly priced. So now you have a rough idea of the cost of Bob. But if I look at the task, if I'm going just this document that I created right here, right? If I were to go create this document by hand, this is a week's worth of work or more. And I did this in about 12 minutes.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Even though I keep saying it's not magic, boy, it's magical.
And then, of course, taking that and then using that as my source document to get. Now, for me, let's say if, I was the actual person reading that, the understanding that I've gotten or I can get from this is now it just leverages my expertise into the application.
Exactly.